Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Today, I have my special co-host, retired Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinale. Joe, thank you for joining. Thank you for being here, and we always appreciate your experience as it pertains to Nancy Guthrie, Day 34, and why we're going to discuss why the Pima County Sheriff's not accepting help from these outside search groups. But before we get into that, Joe, what about what we see on the ground investigative wise? We saw Pima County, one detective and some FBI agents. We saw them going to neighboring homes and asking them questions about their Wi-Fi. So I'd like you to maybe talk a little bit about why that's happening as a retired lieutenant commander. And, you know, we know that this investigation continues, right?
Yeah, it definitely continues. And thank you for having me back again. There's a lot of loose ends that have to be tied in. And I think the latest that we had prior to us doing this show was the update on that other video. It was the same person days before coming to the house. So I think they're trying to go off that aspect and tie that person in to see if they came from any direction, any vehicles. I think right now they're looking more towards vehicles than anything else that may have been picked up, to zero in on that, to tie it in with any plate readers that they might have, or any of the surveillance cameras that are on the outskirts at the gas stations or at any other stores where somebody may have stopped, even stopped to just coordinate and get back out there for a minute or two.
Right.
They're hoping that the cameras picked it up. So they're asking anybody what they have, what kind of cameras they have, and the capability of those cameras to see if they have long recording or they're looping.
Now, I know, Joe, we heard also discussions from some of the news outlets that they were opining or speculating that the perpetrator that we saw on the video had some type of device in his pocket. It looked to me like one of those antennas from a UHF or a VHF radio, maybe to use to communicate with co-conspirators or extra perpetrators who are involved in this abduction and crime. But that's, again, speculation on my behalf. But they're opining that maybe perhaps he had an internet jamming device on his person to knock off Wi-Fi from that said camera that he was messing around with. Now, I feel that that is a possibility, but the probability of that device now jamming homes in a quarter of a mile or homes to the left, right, and behind is pretty slim, because devices like that, albeit that they are available, you could purchase them on eBay, you could purchase them online. They are used, but they're not jamming quarter mile or big, humongous areas. So let's take a listen to what News Nation reported on this, and we'll take a listen to that story in regards to the FBI going to neighboring homes.
Returned to New York City today for an emotional reunion with her NBC family. It was the Today Show host's first trip back to the set since her mother disappeared more than a month ago. TMZ captured video. There now hits day 33. The family's $1 million reward has helped generate more than 40,000 tips, an astronomical number that still hasn't led to any breaks in the case. There were, however, new signs of activity today.
That was my bad. I was in between the members only live stream and this one. I forgot to share the screen. So we didn't miss anything. I shared just a little bit in the beginning, but here we go. I'm sorry about that dead air. But here's the FBI, along with Pima County Sheriff, out at neighboring homes adjacent to Nancy Guthrie's location.
Tips, an astronomical number that still hasn't led to any breaks in the case. There were, however, new signs of activity today. FBI agents were seen going door to door, canvassing the neighborhood in the Catalina foothills where the 84-year-old lived. So does that mean there are new questions to ask, or does it mean that the FBI wasn't satisfied with the answers that Pima County Sheriff's Department?
By the way, folks who are watching, obviously this female is the FBI. She's wearing a hat. I do believe this is a Pima County Sheriff. This is the colors that they wear. So this is part of the task force. Lieutenant Commander, if you don't agree with me, you can chime in. Everybody can hear you. Pima County Sheriff, he's got the ID card there and the round Pima County Sheriff's badge. We know what the FBI's look like. So it's 1-on-1, and they are going out part of the task force that Sergeant Cross talked about. Isn't that correct, boss?
Oh, you're correct. Because even in all these cases, even when we did the Latin King case with the FBI, we had somebody from both sides, going out there. Detectives were assigned, supervisors were assigned, but you want somebody, especially since Pima County Sheriff's Department is familiar with the area, and plus people are going to open the door for them a lot easier sometimes than somebody that they don't know.
Yeah. So when you have local, state, local and federal in this case working together, it makes it more of a smooth operation, because the residents, they see a friend, they see a face from the Pima County Sheriff's, they know what their local law enforcement look like. Whereas a woman like that comes up with an FBI hat on, and they're, if she's by herself or with another agent, like you said, it just makes it go smoother. Let's listen to this report.
God, when it knocked on those same doors weeks ago. For more on all that, let's go live to Brian Enton in Tucson, Arizona.
Shout out to Brian Enton. He has been relentless, boots on the ground from day one, reporting, going into Mexico and going into areas where it's dangerous. So shout out to our good friend Brian Enton, senior national news correspondent for News Nation.
He's been covering this case from the very start. What are you learning about this brand new canvassing yet again of this neighborhood?
Yeah, we saw them out here today, Elizabeth. They not only went to Nancy Guthrie's neighbors on both sides, but to other parts of the neighborhood. It seemed like they knew which houses they wanted to go to. There were some a couple of blocks away where they were talking to people. It was a mix of FBI agents and also Pima County Sheriff's detectives, but they're now all on one task force, which is what I told you yesterday. They've combined it into one very focused task force, which I'm told is a good thing. What's interesting is I talked to some of the neighbors who had the FBI agents visit their homes, and they said there wasn't particularly anything new that they were asking them, but they said that they seemed more focused. They used that word focus, that they were focusing in on some of the same elements that they had asked them about before. Whether that means there are new leads coming in behind the scenes or if they are just doing follow-up, we don't know. But I can tell you, according to the FBI, the number of tips coming in have really started to slow, Elizabeth, since that $1 million reward was first announced. Thank you for.
So there you have it. Joe, I want to bring you back on, like you said here, the case has these ups and downs, the highs and lows. Once that $1 million was offered, flurry of new information comes in. You got to keep talking about that. They got to maybe even consider upping it. These are all things that we felt in the beginning that, day 1 and 2, you're still trying to get your bearings. But as a family on day 3 and 4, they should have been putting this reward out. In my opinion, it helps to move the case along. And your thoughts on what's going on now as a retired lieutenant commander at what we're seeing activity-wise?
Activity-wise, you're seeing them cover their bases right now, going back and they're redoing the investigation from a task force point of view without the interference. I'm not going to say intervention. I'm going to say the interference of the sheriff to a degree. That's why he can't say what's going on federally with this, but there's no way he's going to interfere with the objective of the FBI, which is to get out there and get some more information to possibly tie in what they already know on certain angles. If that perp did use a sophisticated instrument, they probably will know that too. And, right now, I really think it's just the basic investigative skills of the FBI going out there door to door. And you never know, somebody's going to turn around and say, something, and tell me this doesn't happen all the time when we're doing investigations. I really didn't want to say this because I don't want anybody saying, I'm an idiot for saying it, but you know what I saw that day, and maybe it means something, and then it turns out to be something they've been looking for. That's why the in-person, one-on-one canvassing of that area is important, because it puts the human component to it. And when you speak to somebody one-on-one instead of over the phone, it's the world of difference.
100%, Lieutenant. I agree. Hey, let's get into the meat and potatoes of what this live stream is about. And I just wanted to update our audience on what's going on. And, look, this investigation is ongoing. But when you have a sheriff like Sheriff Nanos, running the show, we saw an interview yesterday on NBC, and I talked about this on the members only live stream. There was an NBC reporter, Liz Kravitz. I might be saying it wrong, but I think that's close. She's been covering this from the beginning. She interviewed Sheriff Nanos, and he said to her when she asked about that car that we saw 2.5 miles out, what his thoughts are on that car. And he said that the car is still in, a part of the investigation. We're still looking into the car. But he told her that they're looking at hundreds of thousands of vehicles. Now, come on, guys. Anybody that has half a brain knows in Tucson at 2 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock or that time frame after, I would argue anytime after 8, 9, 10 o'clock, the traffic in that area is not hundreds of thousands of cars. Okay, if you were looking at hundreds of thousands of cars, you would have to be looking at a year's worth of cars coming in and out of there, or a 6-month period. So he made a complete fool of himself. And he also said that he speculates that, and he said we don't work off of speculation and people's thoughts. But he said to her in that same interview that he thought that the backpack could have been purchased off of eBay or from a secondhand place. You know what happened to that video, Joe? I was ready to play it here yesterday. We had to reschedule this live stream because we were helping Ed out. But I was ready to play that video. Sheriff Nanos asked NBC to take it down. It's now private. The video is not even available. And our good friend Brian Enton pointed it out. It was embarrassing to have a sheriff who's in part of this, who's running this operation, this investigation, say that we're looking at hundreds of thousands of cars. Come on, guy.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, if you were in New York City, you couldn't even say hundreds of thousands at that time unless you were going for just a wild guess on something. You know what? I think they have it narrowed down to the make, to the model. They just want to see if they can get a different angle to get possibly a plate or a partial plate to tie in so they can do a lawman search and actually tie it in with the plate readers and let that do its job. Maybe they're just looking for those different angles, and they're looking, when you're going canvassing like this, you're looking as to where the people say their cameras are. Right. And when they say their cameras on the garage, you're going to say, well, that's a very good vantage point for possibly something of looking for a car in that direction to get a plate. Now, don't forget, I believe that's a one-plate state. So yes, you're going to have to look at it from a certain angle from when it passes and when it's approaching. Yeah. So you get the approaching just to get somebody that's over there, and then when it's passing, right, you'll get the plate on that.
Here's the video that was I watched it. I asked Kristen to clip a part of this video for the story that we were going to do yesterday, and this is NBC's video. It says this video is unavailable. It's made private. This video is private. So that was the interview with Sheriff Nanos by reporter Liz Kravitz. I hope I'm saying it right, Liz. If I got it wrong, I apologize. And then right above that, I was going to play this, and then we're going to be joined by Dave Rader. At 3:25 in this video yesterday, Brian Enton was asked about Sheriff Nanos' video, which is no longer available. Here it is, right here.
Been saying that for a while. There were a few other things he said today that really stood out to me. One,
he's talking about the interview that I just showed you is now private.
He was asked about that new surveillance video of the car from 2.5 miles away. He said that it is part of the investigation, but he said that they are looking at hundreds of thousands of cars, which my jaw kind of dropped, like hundreds of thousands.
Do you hear the host? Jesse Weber was laughing. And our good friend, Joe Scott Morgan, legal medical death investigator, who's a great, great professional, he even laughed. He let a chuckle out. So, I mean, this is how controlling this sheriff is. He makes a mistake. He makes 2 blatant mistakes on an interview, and he goes to NBC and says, I need you to take that video down. And what do? They take it down. Crazy, right?
Yeah, it's almost you're waiting. Every time the sheriff speaks, it's almost like you're waiting for that Ralph Cramden moment where he goes, wow. Like, you're just waiting for that because you know he's going to step on himself and say something ridiculous at one point. And you would think by now he would learn what we've been saying, less is more. All right. And he just doesn't grasp that concept.
It's insane. And really the sad part about this is, and I have to highlight it, is who suffers from this. The victim, Nancy Guthrie, and her family, her three children, her 2 daughters and her son.
And the investigators.
And the investigators. They all take this on the chin. All right, let's get back into it. Joining us, Dave, I apologize. This is 15 minutes. Dave Rader's like, Ron, don't do this to me again. I love you like a brother. EquuSearch Midwest director Dave Rader, and we do have this drone search coordinator. Dave, I want to go to you because so many of our true crime enthusiasts that are watching this are saying to themselves, hey, why can't United Cajun Navy and more importantly EquuSearch Midwest just go on the request of family or just show up and start searching, whether the sheriff says yes or no? Why is it that the professional organizations like yourself only come when you have the cooperation of law enforcement?
Well, thanks for inviting me on Friday afternoon, Ron. I appreciate it, and it's great to meet Joe. Anybody that you have on your panel always is just. I just sit here and I shake my head and think, where can I buy some of these brains? But anyway, there's a lot of search teams out there that go what I call rogue or willy-nilly, and they want to just. I think that they mean well, but they just don't do it the right way. They don't think things through. The way that we were taught and we want to handle business is that when, you have to think about what's going to happen in the future. So what happens if we do find something and we don't know what the hell we're doing, and all of this man hours that the police, the investigators, from top to bottom have worked so diligently on and to put together gets thrown out of court because of something that somebody did wrong or didn't preserve the crime scene or whatever it was. So again, when you work with law enforcement, you have this dance that I call is that, while they're doing the investigation, we're out there covering what they're investigating. So we're basically their eyes because they don't have enough people to do everything. You can't investigate and then sit there and do what we do and bring in the resources and choreograph that end of it. So it's a nice fluid scenario. And that's why we always work with hand in hand with law enforcement. But then again, I always also sit there and I look at with law enforcement, do they not bring us in because of people like that they think, well, they're just going to stereotype us and we're part of the cookie cutter club, when they don't really do their due diligence by looking into what EquuSearch is about, what our record is, how we go about things, the high profile cases that we've been on. Again, I've been doing this since 2008. My first one was Kaylee Anthony, and I've been in 22 different states. I think I know a little bit what I'm doing, but again, with every search we learn something and you pass it on, and because criminals are getting smarter and learning more things on how to get with it, and that's where we're behind the 8 ball, and we're trying to keep up with this the best we can through technology. Yeah. Like what you guys were talking about with the LPRs, the license plate readers, Joe. As far as I'm sitting there thinking one step further is what about when they do a tower dump? So now all of a sudden, if you have a car in a certain area, now all of a sudden you can go to that cell phone tower and figure out whose number is bouncing off of that cell phone tower and put 2 and 2 together. Right. Again, I don't want to get on here and I think some things need to be left unsaid so you don't give the bad guy a.
But Dave, on another point that I want to bring up, and this is important, and Lieutenant Cardinale, you'll know this. This will ring true to your ears. Every department has a budget, right? So when a department like Pima County, which is a medium-sized department, right, when they start setting up and having 400 investigators in the beginning of this thing, and Dave, you've seen this down in Hawkins County, you've seen it in many different searches where there's hundreds of law enforcement from every spot and hundreds of volunteers that come out, they get a bill from those departments, those respective departments, for the overtime, for the personnel that's there, for the assets used, for the fuel, for the helicopters, for all of this stuff. And I ask you this, Dave, and I know the same answer is going to be from the United Cajun Navy. What bill do you drop to the Pima County Sheriffs?
Nothing. We're free of charge, not only to the families, and we would never charge law enforcement. That's, the donations is what we run off of. And again, you can't put a dollar amount on this, and I think that if you do put a dollar amount and you do charge, then I think you're in it for the wrong reasons. You're not in it for the reason of helping somebody and helping law enforcement and being productive in your community and outside of your community. Why not help? What else if you can do it and you spare the time and we do it the right way, let's lock and load and let's bring some people home that need closure.
Yeah. And Joe, the price tags of these types of search can reach into the millions, right? When you're talking about overtime and assets used. United Cajun Navy presented a 41-page document to the Pima County Sheriffs about their plan of action, about what assets they could bring to the table. And Dave, you guys have sophisticated drones. You have folks who can search on the ground. If Tim Miller wants to send horses over there, Texas is just a short jump from Arizona. They could have horses there. But I want to ask you, Lieutenant Commander, before we bring in Twyla, who's a drone search coordinator, could there be a possibility that the FBI and Pima County Sheriffs already know of or circled in on a perp and a whole story of what happened to Nancy Guthrie without releasing that to the public? And could that be one of the reasons? And I'm not trying to justify, I'm saying, could that potentially, boss, be one of the reasons that they're not taking in any help?
It could be one of the reasons, but if you were that close and you wanted to throw somebody off, you would use the resources. You would take Dave on the side and say, Dave, this is what we want you to do. We're going in a different direction, but yes, search this area, do this. You could play it any way you want, but what Dave offers with this no price tag is so important, as you said. And here's something else. If they do have a suspect or suspects, plural, in mind right now, then they're going in a specific direction. And there's no way you're going to tell me unless you know the exact route that was taken, that you can, say you covered everything in that 500 square miles. If it is that, they might have it down to just 20 square miles for all we know. We don't know. That's something that they know. But still, why wouldn't you bring in resources that, number one, we missed the big point about how Dave knows what to look for, knows that if they do find something, how to secure it, has been on these scenes so many times before that they are just an extension of the police department, all right, that knows how to handle a crime scene. That's important because don't forget, gentlemen, we saw people just walking around from south of the border as well, saying they want to help. They want to get in there, and they're trampling over areas that shouldn't be trampled over if they did want to go into those areas, because now they're going to, once again, the defense attorneys come into play. Who was in that area? Who could have done this? Who could have done that? But, there's so many questions, so. Yeah,
and I want to just interject for a second there, what you're saying, because it's important about the trampling and going into areas. When you have law enforcement, Dave, you can testify to this. They let you go out with a team of guys. You talked about that on the Summer Wells search, where we had the detective going up with you onto private property or on public property, and would tell you, hey, this is the area that we want to look at, and this is the areas that we want to concentrate in. So how important is it having an investigator embedded with your search people, like the crew, like Tony and Twyla and all the rest of your volunteers? How important is that, and how valuable is it?
Well, again, we want to do things the right way. Again, you don't want to trample on private property. Law enforcement, if we do have somebody that's in with us and they can afford to send somebody with us, is invaluable, because for the simple reason that if we do find something, we back out, and guess what? The police are right there. They're overseeing everything that we're doing. And at that point in time, it becomes their scene. We back out of it. We wait for them for what they want us to do, whether they want us to, in a case where somebody has been found and their bones, if they want us to continue on looking for more of the remains, or if they shut it down, they take our names and then they take it from there. But it's very important that you follow these you follow procedures, or again you're just wasting a lot of time because the defense attorney is going to sit there and pick you apart. And that's something that we pride ourselves on, is that we do things the right way. We do it by the letter of the law, and knock on wood, we've been very successful in our past.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. Sorry about that. Just a little bit of an adjustment here for me. Dave, I wanted to talk about some of the resources and assets that are available to not only your search organization, but others. But I primarily want to focus on what you have to offer that is unique in mass land searches for missing persons. And also remind the audience that's watching here today is that you guys were on standby. I think you and I spoke very early in this missing/abduction of Nancy Guthrie. I don't believe it's a missing. I believe she was abducted and taken out of that home, obviously by force. And we talked early on, and you guys were on standby. Mm-hmm. What kind of assets would be most important early on, and even right now, as we speak, day 34, that EquuSearch has available to the Pima County Sheriff that they're not utilizing?
For one, the biggest thing that we have in our arsenal are the drones. And again, if Twyla's in here and she can speak of those, she's highly educated as far as on the drone program. I mean, she's the search coordinator, and she's the drone commander. And drones right now, and people say, well, we're using drones. That's all well and good. These are drones, but it's what we have at our fingertips that have been developed by Gene Robinson, and it's been developed by Shane Michaels up in Canada. And the two work together to come up with something that, is just, it's out of this world. I can't even wrap my head around it, or even sometimes I can't even talk about it because I don't know if I'm saying the right things or not. But the technology end of this, with the thermal, the technology with 5 cameras on one bird that can actually tell if a piece of ground has been disturbed. And here's the fun part about this is that the fun fact is that when you have something that you can narrow down, and it will literally show it to you, it GPSs it. So now all of a sudden, instead of sending 30 people in and maybe trample on something, guess what? The drone has found something. It's found an anomaly. You can take 1 or 2 people or 1 or 2 designated officers and do nothing but check the anomalies that we're coming up with. So guess what? Now all of a sudden you're sending law enforcement into a potential crime scene. So now they're securing it without having the trampling of either a search team or the general public, if that makes any sense. We have remote-controlled sonar units to do ponds. The Rolodex goes on and on. So,
yeah. Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinale, I saw you shaking your head and agreeing with Dave. Your thoughts on that?
And Dave is so right. And the fact that Dave has got this whole arsenal that he can go in with to address these. I mean, what I thought with EquuSearch would be like, if they wanted to use them in that environment, that terrain, he would be familiar with terrain like that to bring the horses in and do what they have to do to try to get back there, because some of this terrain is very tough to get back there, and only horses can get back there. But the fact that he's got the ability to advance a drone before he dispatches anybody else, and to say, what do you think about this, and compare it with law enforcement? I mean, I, for one, would be saying, hey, I like it. Let's send somebody in there. You hold back. If we need you, we're going to bring you in on this. But it's like having somebody, it's like having Ed on standby, with his expertise. And then you say, well, Dave, this didn't work out. What do you think we should do from here? Say, well, let me send the drone up over here. and use the thermal imaging, which we've used so many times before. I mean, it doesn't make sense to say no unless you already know a direction you want to go and that this isn't going to help. That's the only rhyme or reason I can give for this, Ron.
Well, here's the other thing too, is Joe, and I don't mean to cut anybody off, but you have to sit there and look at, with every second of every minute of every hour of every day, that evidence is degrading. So the quicker that you can sit there and find this woman or this individual, the quicker that you can now, preserve the evidence that and tell the story of how, when, and why.
Yeah, exactly. And Ron, just to bring something in here, show you how advanced we've become. You and I discussed the Paul Heidelberg case. We had a slain police officer, and we were narrowing down, zeroing in on somebody who we knew, but we couldn't find this individual. And we didn't have the technology they had today with the triangulation. All right. Back then, it was a big trailer that came in with a satellite dish, and we brought it into Times Square, and it would give you maybe a 3-block radius of where you could be. Times Square, that's like finding a needle in a haystack, but it put us in the right area. Today, that technology is, you could bring it right to the desk that we're sitting at right now and say, this is where that individual is. And the point being is the NYPD had great resources back then, but they didn't have that. And they brought the Army in who did have that, and they helped us out with it. The point is, you bring in anybody you can utilize that's willing to help at any expense at that point, but it wasn't really an expense. And over here, you don't even have the expense. You have the experience. There's a difference, expense and experience.
It just blows my mind that when you have free resources of professionals, these aren't rinky-dink fly-by-night people that are coming around with sticks and shovels in their hands. And don't get me wrong, the women that came in from, I think, Mexico were responsible for recovering lots of bodies, lots of people's remains. I don't know the exact number, but it was a lot. And I looked at that and I said, what in God's name is this Pima County Sheriff waiting for? Okay. And that's why I brought up the fact of maybe there is a possibility that they're onto something. But at the end of the day, in the beginning, this United Cajun Navy guy was on the set at February 22nd, right? I think I put it up there. Dave Rader and EquuSearch, the whole entire team, including Twyla and all the drone pilots and all of the people and the assets, were ready to go from day one. Why? Why in God's name were these guys not having their temporary headquarters vehicle parked along that street in Tucson where Nancy Guthrie disappeared from? And why weren't their assets out there all day until the break of dawn? And
Ron, think about it. You just said something. From day one, Dave was ready to go. What does that tell you? Dave's been involved in anything. Gabby Petito, all right? Let's look at those cases like that. When you have it and you say, listen, gentlemen, we've been involved with this before. I'll tell you right now, if one of our suspects was located out of state, say Texas, and we had to come up with something, he's going to be one of the first people I'm going to if I'm over there saying, can we bring them in and say, bring them over here and let's see what they can help out with, because time is of the essence when it comes to a lot of these cases.
You have one of your members of your department with them. You can, some of these guys like Sheriff Nanos is I have all the things, big ego, right? In big letters right here on the board next to me. Spiteful, micromanager, wants to be first. If he wants to be first, embed a team in every one of Dave's teams, embed one sheriff or detective. And then when they make a recovery, you can now pump out your chest and say, my department, along with EquuSearch, Dave, you know how this goes. All right, Twyla is getting mad, and you don't want a woman mad. So,
no, please, for the love of God, bring her in now.
EquuSearch drone search coordinator. Twyla knows how to operate these drones. She's out there with the fly boys, right? Tony and Danny and the whole crew. They went to search for Dylan Rounds in Utah. They went down over in Tennessee for Summer Wells. They were on the Sebastian Rogers case, which is that poor little boy, 15 years old, just vanished. Supposedly walked out of his house and never was seen again. These people were down searching for him. Twyla, thank you for joining. I love you. What's going on? Talk about the drones in this case and what we could have.
Let her get her out first.
It's about time y'all brung a female up on this panel. I'm telling you, I was over here. No, I'm just playing. Everything's fine. I was listening to you guys talk, and I actually reached out to that sheriff's department and spoke with the resource lady, and told her who I was, told us who, what we have to offer, even though we were on standby, or we are on standby. So I took it to the next level and reached out just to make sure that they know that we're still here. We're waiting. All we need is a phone call. And she was very interested in what we had to offer. And she sent me over to leave a message with I believe it was a sergeant that was in charge of Nancy's case. And I didn't get in touch with him, and I tried reaching out again. The first time I left a voicemail, the second time, can't remember if the voicemail was full or if I didn't leave a message. I don't know, but I did reach out and offer, even though we've been on standby for a few weeks now. But it would be great if we could go out there just to be of assistance. And I agree with you 100%, Ron, when you were saying, if there's law enforcement out there that has egos and this, that, and the other, some of them do not understand that they will shine brighter by bringing outside resources in so that they can catch a break and look at the investigative end of it. And then we can do what we do and then come together and have something that, we could find something that was not missed on purpose, but missed because there were so many people out there while they're doing the investigation. And then all together, we're in this for one reason, working together, and then it would make them shine even brighter. That's my opinion. But somebody with the ego or whatever is being said about this guy, nobody's going to be able to convince him except for himself. And we'll be here waiting on standby for when he's ready for us to come in and assist. But until then, people reach out and say, why are y'all not there? This is frustrating. Why can't? Well, we can't until we get approval from law enforcement. That's just how we do it. And we love to have law enforcement there. And sometimes I'll start a CalTopo and give it to the detective, investigator, sheriff, or whatever. And if they're tied up doing something, I explain to them, look, you can sit here and watch everything that we do on this link that I'm sending you, and while you're sitting at your desk doing the investigative end of this. So we're all about whatever they want us to do, and we'd be glad to jump up and go out there and be of assistance when they allow us. We're just waiting.
I want to talk to you, Twyla, about the drone capabilities, and I'll leave you and Dave on to explain to the audience. Nancy Guthrie, if in fact she was placed somewhere in the middle of the desert or in the middle of an area where there's no homes, and we had one of your drones up there and she was wearing, just let's say, argument's sake, a green sweater or whatever color sweater, what are the capabilities of the actual equipment, the drone that you have, that you and Tony and Danny and the whole crew go out there, and the programs that you run it through? Walk the audience through that. Dave, I'm going to rely on you to take.
Well, again,
DutyRon, I actually sent you a picture if you want to show them. It's not the first two pictures, but it's the second two pictures that doesn't have coordinates on it. And if you want to show that on the screen, if you can, that way it'll make more sense when I'm trying to explain it. But if she has on a green shirt, and with the drone end of it, we don't even have to be on the ground. If that agency has a drone and can put it up in the air, we can give them settings over the phone, through email, however they prefer, and we can give them settings to whatever type of drone they have of how they need to fly this area. And then we would make a folder for them. They wouldn't even have to worry about that. And then their drone pilot can put these images in the folder. And then what we do on my end is I'll download the images. Gene and Shane does this. The program is called Locate, LOC, and then the number 8. Anybody can look it up and get details and buy it and purchase it and learn it. But I'll download the images, and if she had on a green shirt, I'll put in there that I'll put on the limiter thing, I'll pick the color green and I'll set the limiter to where I feel comfortable. And I put these images in there. Say, for an example, there's 120 images of all these areas. I mean, this big old area. Okay, what we have here, for an example, pretend that blue circle is green. And that real tiny small spot in the middle of that is a drone image that was taken from a case that we were searching in the middle of nowhere with trees and everything. And I was running the color blue. Okay, in her example, if she's wearing green, I'd put green in there and I'd put these 120 something images in to locate, adjust my limiter, tell it I'm looking for the color green, and I'd run these images. And those images will run in 120 images will run in a matter of seconds. And then what this program does is it'll give me every image that has the color green, blue, magenta, things like that. And in that picture, I was running blue. So the program told me, hey, it's alerting me that this picture has something blue in it. I need to take a look at it. That ended up being a small piece of a Bud Light beer box. And it picked up the blue on the very edge of that beer box that had been sitting out there, I don't know, a couple of years, but there was a small spot of blue, and that program picked that up and told me, hey, this color that you're looking for, it's right here in this image. So at that point, I took that, and it comes with coordinates of the drone image, and I'll say, hey, I've got something interesting. If I can't determine what it is, I'll get a second opinion from Gene. And we always agree it's better to send somebody out to look at this and lay eyes on it. So at that point, I'll send coordinates over to Dave or the detective or whoever's on the team with that particular image. As a matter of fact, we wasn't even in that state, and I was working it over the phone with this detective and giving him the settings. He put his pilot up. They went and did it from a whole nother county. They worked together.
Wait a minute.
I don't know if DutyRon can hear me or not.
Yeah, no, I could hear you. But what you're saying is that you got drone images and you were working it with the program in a different state, so you don't even have to be in Arizona? Is that what she was saying, Dave?
Absolutely. We do it all the time.
Dave, explain that, because Twyla's having a hard time. I guess her internet kicked her out. But let the audience know, Dave.
There's a lot of times where if it's of importance to where we can't get there right away, if law enforcement has, or a local drone pilot has his bird, then what we'll do is we'll tell him exactly what settings it needs to be done, and then we'll put Twyla on standby, and then he'll fly it, and then he'll download it to a OneDrive. Then she can pick it out of the OneDrive box, and immediately start looking into putting it through the locate. And then what's really truly amazing about Twyla is that she's never satisfied with just what the program picks up in circles. She will literally go back on each individual picture and eyeball it. And I don't know if anybody has ever tried to sit there and just stare at a picture and try to pick out a certain color. I'm colorblind, so I would suck at it. But she has literally sat there for hours upon hours upon hours after she is given targets to make sure that she hasn't missed or anything has been missed within each one of those pictures. And then what you do is then we contact that local law enforcement or the drone pilot. We give him the coordinates, and then he can have the people come out and say, this is what it is. So in this case, it wasn't what we were looking for. It was it was something else. But again, the point of this being is that when you have a bird that's 165 feet up in the air, and it can literally pick up a Bud Light bottle cap and circle it and capture that blue, that's nothing short of amazement. Now they've even come up with the thermal, and this is where I get totally confused. So the thermal will actually go through. So if you have a heavy canopy, from what I understand, and you can't even see this with the naked eye, is that the spike of heat, it goes up and it will literally go through the trees, the canopy. And when they're flying over it, it will spike on a graph. And you're not actually looking at the picture like what you've got on board here. You would be looking at a graph, and at the graph where it hits highest, 9 times out of 10, that's where your body is, because it's hotter than anything else around that, if that makes any sense.
This is technology. Lieutenant,
Hey, Ron,
take it.
Let me ask Dave a question while you're on that specific subject. Let's roll the clock back to day 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you want to do in the beginning of this, and say the investigators want to keep something close to the vest about maybe she was wearing a robe or pajamas that they knew the color, they knew the clothing color. All right, at the beginning of this investigation, Dave, and they said to you, Dave, we want you to focus on this with your drone capacity there. Can you send it out? Or even if you weren't there, and Twyla could have just did what she did with the other department and said, put these coordinates in, put it in like this, put this into your system, and it will automatically search. It may not have found something, but it would have eliminated the fact that they covered that aspect of it, that we did send up, and we satisfied that it's not in this particular area of the immediate, the surrounding area of the house. Right, Dave?
Right. And then here we can go back, Joe, is we can look at it for what's on the surface, like say for the colors. And then we can take the M3M and then run it over the same area, the same grid for ground disturbances. So now you're doing 2 for 1. Now, not only are you looking for something that's potentially on surface to put you in that area, but now all of a sudden, what happens if a part of that material was hanging out from the ground that is now outlined from a potential dig site or a potential clandestine grave? Yeah. So now you've hit a home run. And again, you haven't put boots on the ground. And Twyla, and she's back now, and I'm not going to speak for her, or else I'll get in trouble and I'll be detained. But this girl is literally, it's almost like when E.F. Hutton talks, you got to listen to her. So
listen.
And so anyway, but she is very emphatically, she wants nobody in that area prior to us going in and flying it to potentially harm the situation. Yeah. So she wants nothing but her drone shots first. Then we can follow it up with dogs and people. So and that's a great aspect that she has on this, as far as with the crime scene also, is look, nobody, this is virgin. Nobody's walked in it. We flew it, and then she comes up with the anomaly. She tells somebody where the anomaly is, and it's up to them to go and do it. She has a great story about a guy that was on an island, and I'll let her tell you this, because if it wasn't for her and this drone team, that kid would have never been found. So, DutyRon, is that okay for her to tell that story?
Of course. Before you tell the story about that recovery, Twyla, it's just mind-blowing in the case of Nancy Guthrie that we're in day 34, and the Pima County Sheriff is still not answering the United Cajun Navy. They're not answering you guys. Twyla just indicated that she reached out to the public information officer and that she was basically told to talk to a sergeant. Thank God they didn't say talk to Sergeant Cross, because he does answer the phone, right, Lieutenant? Sergeant Cross.
Oh, he does.
But it's just mind-blowing that we have this on the national and international stage case. They refused help from you guys. They refused help from the United Cajun Navy, who's got a representative still on the ground there. And the technology that's available to them is astronomical. Now, if they would have just made a press conference and said, hey, we don't need the help of any outside agencies or search groups for the following reason, then most people here in the chat would be understanding and be like, okay, all right, there's no need for it. They've already narrowed in on somebody, or the case does not go in that direction. They're not going in that direction. But they haven't done that. And there's many people in the chat, and by a show of hands in the chat, who agrees? Many people in the chat are just like, just go there and search anyways. But EquuSearch is professional. United Cajun Navy, from all looks, is professional. They do not just insert themselves in an investigation when they're not wanted there. They won't do it. So let's see what the chat says. Twyla, on to that story.
So there was a guy that was went missing, and we decided to put the drones up in the air. And he liked water. He was an older guy. I don't think he was special needs or nothing, but I had found out, and maybe the drone guys had found out through one of his friends, that he loved jumping in water for whatever reason. So I told the boys, I said, let's look on this map and see if there's any water or whatever. So they went out, reconned it, this, that, and the other. And I said, okay, just let's fly these areas. So they went out and they flew these areas. They were in this one area, and this guy came up and, oh, he was all against them being over there trespassing, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, just continue on with what you're doing. Law enforcement knows what we're doing. Just continue on. So I'm sitting there, you know, running these images. They do the images, send them to me. I download it, and I'm sitting here looking at these images while I'm on the phone with Tony and Danny. And this guy's literally screaming at them, trying to get them out of there. Da, da, da. It was just some random weird person. And I'm like, oh, excuse my language, but I was like, oh shit, y'all. And they just got stone cold quiet. And I said, oh my goodness. So I had found something. I was running the colors red and blue and yellow and whatever colors I could think of, because we really didn't know what colors, this guy was wearing. So I was just guessing. I was like, let me put this color in and run it. Let me do this. Let me do that. So there's an island in the middle of the river in Ohio, I believe it was. It was a few years ago. Um, and I felt this target. First, I seen like this brown looking spot with my eyes, and this is like 175 feet, 65 feet in the air. And I'm like, okay, what is this? Something doesn't look right. So I put it over in a locate, put these colors in there, and this same area was giving me that there was something red there. So I was like, let me try blue. Maybe the red is just some berry or something. Put blue in there, and it just kept telling me, okay, there's something here. So I go on there, and when you put these images in locate and run them, and you zoom in, you get better zoom than you do just looking at it from OneDrive or whatever. So I zoomed in and I said, okay, y'all are going to have to go take these coordinates. And I sent the coordinates over to Tony and Danny. And I said, y'all are going to have to check this. Well, our problem is it was in the middle of a river. It was like an island. And they was like, well, how do we get over here? Well, we came up with the agreement to where they went to where they were close enough to this area, and they put the drone, the same drone, up in the air, flew it over to this island, and zoomed in on where these coordinates were of this target that I kept getting. And they was I was like, okay, what are they doing? I got to call them back. Well, no answer. I'm thinking the worst. Of course, this man's done got him. Whatever. So one of the pilots, I'm not gonna call his name, but I will tell you, it wasn't Tony. He calls me back and he's just, oh my gosh, there's something there. And I said, well, I knew there was something there, but what is it? And he was just, I guess he was just so, we were so like in shock because we have passion in trying to give families closure, okay? And then he was in shock and this, that, and the other. So he sends me a picture of his drone controller, literally. I said, just send me a picture of the controller. I'm not going to wait for you to upload these images. And when he sent it to me, I was like, oh my goodness. And at that point, I told them, I said, y'all stay where y'all are at. I got off the phone, and before I can even call Dave, I called the detective that was on the case, told him what I had, and he immediately, he said, I've got somebody en route. I sent him the coordinates, and keep in mind, I'm in Tennessee. This is in Ohio. I'm hours away. Called this detective. He sent him the coordinates, told him where they were at. He went there, and our drone pilots backed out because that's what we were supposed to do, because it became an investigative in there. And they stepped back. He brung in a water team. They put some guys on a little boat and went over to that island. And sure enough, there's where this boy had laid. And I think he was, what, Dave, was he like 19? He had been missing for 19 days or something.
Yeah.
It was, and then there was another lady that we had too that went missing from a nursing home, and I ran purple for her because she had on a colorful flowery shirt, and I'm not sure that they knew what the flower colors were. So I was like, okay, let's just run purple or magenta or whatever. I think I run it for pink magenta, and it gave me purple flowers. Same thing. I said, I'm in Tennessee. Tony's up there where he's at, where this missing person is. Sent him the coordinates, and it had got dark. So the next morning, Tony goes to meet up with the fire marshal to go over where these corpses were, and sure enough, he was there probably, I don't know, maybe 15 feet, 16 feet from where she is. And this, like I said a while ago before I cut off, we don't have to be on the ground. If they have a drone, we can give them coordinates, and we don't do it to try to be, all that in a bag of chips. We do it to make it easier for law enforcement and easier for the families. And we like to come together for one person or one purpose, and that's to find this person any way we possibly can.
Well, Twyla, I want to thank you for your work and your effort to find the missing. Lost is not alone is the mantra of EquuSearch, not only Midwest, but Texas EquuSearch. You guys are great angels from up above. You are all volunteers and don't get paid for what you do. So I want to encourage everyone to go and support groups like EquuSearch Midwest, United Cajun Navy's down on the ground, and any support group, any group that searches for the missing for free. They need your help. So please support these men and women who volunteer their time. She's a mother. She goes out and does the stuff. Dave is running around doing this organization and running this group. He's the director of EquuSearch Midwest. He doesn't get paid a dime for this. And him and Linda and Tony and I call it the team, right? The whole team.
And guys, not to interrupt you, but guess what? We also now have a female certified drone pilot. I am so excited to add her to our box. She's been a teammate, but we've talked about the drone thing, and she went and passed her test. And me, Tony, and Danny, and Dave, we could be more excited because she's in a whole nother state. So that's another state where we have resources and technology at.
Girl power to the fifth.
That's right.
Yeah, so I just want to close up, Dave, with you. You guys are on standby still in this case, and you're working many others. I talked to you over the weekend and earlier this week. You were out in the rain and using heavy equipment to search for a person that went missing in 1996 or 97 or something.
99, little 9-year-old girl.
1999, they're out working a case in the soaking downpour rain with heavy equipment, excavating pieces of property thanks to a volunteer landscape organization. You guys are angels from above, and you're all really doing God's work. So I thank you. Dave, give your final thoughts on the Nancy Guthrie case.
I wish that we could get, I think one of your viewers sat there and said, show this to the family, show this to, I wish that we could get through to the sheriff somehow and let him know exactly what kind of resources that we have, that there's none like this on the planet that we want to use and we want to bring in. And again, we don't want to be a hindrance. We want to be helpful. And again, we're all ready to go. Twyla's ready to go. Danny, Tony, Cassie's probably on board. I know Tim Miller is. And we're just ready to rock and roll. And again, anytime that we can sit there and highlight somebody that's missing and generate something to where we can help or help find the answers, that's what it's all about.
Dave, I want to thank you and Twyla and the whole team. Tony was in the chat. I saw him there. He said, Lost is not alone. I highlighted that. I want to thank you guys for your friendship. Thank you for your support for this channel, and also all of our community here supports you guys. So stay safe out there, and we will see you guys on the next one. Retired Lieutenant Commander Joe, you got final thoughts for the crew?
No, I think, like you said, they're doing God's work, and Don't be, don't be foolish like certain people that we're speaking about today. Use the assets that are available to you. I only wish we had these kind of assets back in the day, but I'll still go with good old brain power from my investigators. That's, the basis for everything. And then when you have this to add to it, it's great. Can you imagine this down at Gilgo years back? It would have been great.
Get it. And they if they got called on that, if they were in existence at that time, or even got a call, say tomorrow, hey, could you come out to Gilgo and help us search? Dave, what would happen?
Absolutely. On the way. I always keep a bag packed.
Yeah, and you'd be sleeping at mine.
Dave, on that one, I keep my bag packed, ready to go.
Yep.
Dave, we're gonna have to put you northeast as well then.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one place, Joe, I have never been. I've never been up. I've been close to Syracuse on a case, but I've never been in the heart of New York or any points further north.
Visit. You got to come and visit, or we'll come and meet you guys. I want to go over the super chats, but I don't want to hold Dave and Twyla here. I know you guys got things to do. Thank you so much for being here, guys. We love you, and we'll see you on the next one. So I'll say goodbye to Dave, and the chat is loving you guys.
All right.
There it goes. Dave, Twyla, we'll see you soon. Hey, Joe, I want to go over the super chats if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah, here's one from Kelly. She says that Brian Anton reported today that neighbors were without internet the night, so may have been a signal jammer after all. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a signal jammer. Some places have spotty internet. Like sometimes if it rains really hard in my neighborhood or my stepmom out in Suffolk County, you could lose internet like that. That thing that was in his pocket didn't, of course, we didn't see it. We just saw the antenna. Could have been a signal jammer, but I wouldn't bet my bottom dollar on it. And I think that we're giving this guy too much credit. Joe?
Could have been a point-to-point radio. Could have been just like your local radios you can get from, once again, Walmart, where everybody was speculating that backpack came from because they do sell that particular brand. So, speculation leads to a little too much, too much in these investigations. I think you can address it, put it away or go further on it. But that's up to the investigators because they're the only ones who know what they're really investigating at this point and what direction they want to go to and actually go back to,
right.
And then move forward again because they are retracing steps again to make sure they covered all the bases. So
good point, boss. Good point there. S.A. Young 15 sends in 10. He or she says, you guys put more thought and consideration into this case than Nanos. Thank you. Well, I mean, we're just covering it from the outside, but that may have been directed to maybe Twyla and Dave as well. But thank you so much for your support. Helen, the Scottish Llama, member for 28 months, says reputable SARS groups, Mountain Rescue, EquuSearch, United Cajun Navy have vital experience in finding missing people. That's also an asset. Amen. Yeah, they laid it out for us here. And look, all I got to do is put this up on the screen. That's some of the drone technology that they have available to them, and it's so important. Aurora Moon, thank you for the 20. Did they use search dogs in the house that smell trauma, like struggle in certain places, even around the outside? I saw very limited footage, and I'll let you answer it too, Joe. I saw limited footage where it showed one dog. It looked like one of those Malinois dogs from Bortac. But that doesn't necessarily mean they didn't use the dogs, but they don't talk about it. So it leads to the speculation. Your thoughts, boss?
Well, they may have had the dogs there. And once again, if they're, the bloodhounds, if they bring them in, they're going to take them from one point. Even if it went, remember, we spoke about this, Ron, and I know the people remember, if the dog only went from the house or the inside of the house and went outside and then went to a certain point, you can at least say, this is where the scent leads to, right here, and then take it from there. Then at that point, you're going to know they had to remove her somehow by vehicle or something, because if they dragged a person around that area, the dogs are going to follow that scent. And believe me, they have very good, they could have scented anything in that house to the dog, and the dog would have went to that point. And then from that point where you had to go, what direction you had to go. It's a valid point, and I just hope they addressed it to that degree.
I hope and pray as well. Hey, Kitty MCK13, thank you for being a member. She says, "Hey everyone, there's over 2,000 of us here live. It would just take a second to hit the like button. So thank you for that. If you're new and newly subscribed, let us know where you're watching from and let us know that you're new. We'd love to say hello to you. We are retired New York City police detectives and lieutenant. Joe is a retired police lieutenant commander from the NYPD. Him and I work together. I have some pictures from last night. Joe, with your permission, can I show these pictures?
Absolutely.
We helped Ed Wallace do a move with one of his family members, and I personally didn't move anything heavy thanks to the team. But here is a photo of us last night. Ed Wallace, myself, and Lieutenant Commander Joe. I don't know if that's coming across good. There it is. The boys. The boys are back in town. Here's another one.
That's it.
Look at those three handsome the three musketeers last night in the storage facility. Thank you for helping out, Joe.
Yeah, that was a good night.
We appreciate you. A lot of new people, new from Pennsylvania. Welcome in. Thank you for being here. Tracy's looking for the merch. It's pinned in the little shelf below. Everybody's saying great pictures, sweet pictures. People love it. Joe, you are tall. He's a tall man. Well, how tall are you? 6'2"?
6'2".
Yeah. There you go.
I try not to shrink in the ages, though. So,
hi, Carol. Welcome in from Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. We love it over there. Those are one of our neighbors, right? The tri-state area: New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. Hello from Scotland. Great to see you, Just Liz. Thank you for being here. A couple of questions coming in from Keith. Couple questions. The FBI and law enforcement looked into the rental places for people that rented trucks, Bobcats, since February 1st, 2nd. I hope they did. That's part of the investigation. Joe, you're a retired lieutenant commander. I keep saying it because new people join. This is all part of that task force and the team effort. You, as a commander, you take your assets and your personnel. You guys run down, team number 1 runs down all the video assets. Team number 2 runs down the rentals. Team number 3 goes to Walmart and all the online purchasing store places for backpack, right? Isn't that how that goes?
That's it. Everything that's generic to that investigation, you would want to go with rent-a-cars as well. Somebody rents a car, they don't want to use their own car. I don't know what the cooperation is from the south of the border, but, you have to look. It's very close. It's very close to where they are. And you want to address all these things with moving, like a U-Haul or something to that effect, a van, go to vans and then tie it in with the videos that they're showing of the cars, that they have to address that issue of that road with a car coming down, and like neighbors don't know that's Charlie's car, or that's Mary's car. They know that. But when they see a car and they say, wait a minute, we haven't seen that car there before. Could be somebody visiting, but you have to address it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's coming from someone who knows investigations. Angela, thank you for being a member for 36 months. She said they need to let Dave Rader in to do his job. Yeah, that's part of the battle. Cheryl, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Hang up your cuffs, Sheriff. You're done, says Jackie 8292. This is how people feel, and it makes me sad because he did this to himself. We didn't help him do this. He helped himself. Fun fact, Greek word for dwarf is Nanos. Holy shit. Jackie, back to back.
That is funny.
Those are back-to-back super chats by the same person. Thank you, Jackie. Joe.
Here's something for you, Ron, for everybody. And I couldn't answer it because Dave was speaking before. There is a reason why Twyla was able to get through. And right now, anything that goes in there is being redirected to the task force. So that's why she gave that sergeant's number out, because all calls, and this is the protocol for the FBI, is now that these calls are going to be brought to the task force, which is good because then they can't just bury it, say, hang up on them. We don't want to deal with them. They have to address it because a log is being kept for that as well.
Yeah, everything's got to be chased down. Everything's got to be answered. Yep. So lots of stuff. I took some notes, and I want to just make sure I hit it all. They revisited the the person that was detained in the Range Rover, Luke Daly, and his mom, Mary. NBC Arizona News did an in-studio sit-down with the attorney. People are still coming at that guy. It's the job of the law enforcement and the FBI in particular, if he is in fact a perp, for them to run down all those leads and to come up with that probable cause. Not, hey, he looks like, hey, I think it's him. You cannot make arrests based on thoughts and speculation, and you look similar to the picture of the ski mask guy that we see. So he hired an attorney, went in there, gave an interview. I asked our body language guy to take a look at it. He said he didn't see anything. Josh from the United Cajun Navy has been there since arguably February 22nd or 21st, and he is not being offered any type of information of whether they can be used or not. He submitted a 41-page document. The FBI went to nearby homes, asked about the Wi-Fi. Some people said their Wi-Fi was spotty that night, but if you ask reporters who are down there, you have to go and get Elon Musk's, they're using those satellites, I don't know what. Yeah, so, in these remote areas, you can ask anybody, especially in the mountains or in the desert. You can't get a signal. So, Wi-Fi is going to be spotty. I don't think, and I could be wrong, but personally, if you're asking me my detective sense, I don't think this guy was advanced enough to come in there with a jammer. He looked like Mr. Dope-de-dope coming in, walking like a, gun slinged in the front in a revolver holster, using a semi-auto. It's just, the whole thing was stupid. And I don't think that, and that's my opinion. I'm not saying, yes, Starlink. Thank you, Kitty. Kitty's she's always there to rescue us, right? That's why I love Kitty Mac.
He was geared for the job he was probably sent there to do.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. All right. So whoever was behind the scenes working with this individual, all right, that's where you're going to get those answers. And that's why they may not be using, United Cajun Navy or EquuSearch, because they already know the direction they have to go with this. And I think they have answers maybe down the road. If something comes up, then they can utilize their skills, especially in that terrain. Like I said to Dave, that would be the best thing for them to use EquuSearch, because now you have somebody who's willing to go in there and help you out.
You and I talked about this in the rain last night when we were done with the moving detail. I feel like this was a crime of financial gain, whether it's by someone known to Nancy or knows of her, or maybe, in what everybody's saying, maybe it is somebody within the family. I don't know, but I know this. Most of these crimes, especially involving a sick 84-year-old woman who's on blood thinners, who's got mobility issues, it involves and revolves not around her, but around the assets that are attached to her. So all of these investigators behind the scenes are looking at financials. They're looking at people in the family who are struggling and that would have a motive to try to get money from her will or her property being turned over to them. These are parts of the investigation. I'm not saying that that is what it is, but I feel strongly that this crime didn't happen just by chance. It happened. She was targeted. She was targeted for financial gain. And that's what I think will happen at the end, but we'll see. Your thoughts?
You have to go back to the basics. Why Nancy? Why now? What did she have to offer? And it's every time you go back to what the initial, what it comes back to is most often money. All right. Most often jealousy, but don't think that that's the only, they're not getting tunnel vision with this. They're looking to everything else, because let's look at all the crazy stories that are out there, from aliens to all over the place, to people saying that it might have something to do with Savannah's coverage of certain things for the Epstein case. You don't know, but don't forget, and don't let it, go by the wayside, that the FBI is probably addressing all of this right now too, because it's part of also disproving things in the case. So it's a big area you have to cover when you're doing a case like this. You have to make sure that when you're ready to nail the people that are who did this, or you bring them to trial, that you have the other side of the spectrum over here, which is the prosecution side of it. So there's a lot that goes into investigations that people really don't know, and they just speculate.
Thank you for that, Lieutenant. Ocean Girl says, DutyRon, doormat's still there. What's your reaction? It's horrible. It's horrific that mat is not taken into custody and analyzed. That mat should have been at Quantico or at a certified lab locally to check it for DNA, saliva, hairs, and fiber. We saw the foliage that he ripped out on that doormat that he actually grabbed with those gloves. If he wiped his eyes or his face with those gloves at any point during the night, what's on the outside of that glove? Touch DNA. The Lacard's exchange principle, ladies and gentlemen, comes into play here. So that mat should have been scooped up, but it wasn't. It's still sitting there. I am outraged by that. It's despicable. A jammer, but uses shrubbery to take cover to the camera. Not that sophisticated, in my opinion. Yes, Emily. Thank you. Thank you for that super chat, and thank you for that comment. All right, I want to say thank you to our my guest co-host, Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinale, for your insight. It is invaluable to the true crime community, and in particular, Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Joe, your camera looks unbelievable. I'm going full screen. What an upgrade. How did you manage that, Joe?
Oh, I had help from a friend, help from a good friend, It worked out well. It definitely works out well. And the audio and everything is very good. It's just we're going to make a few more adjustments, so we'll see what happens with it. But it's good, and I thank you for that, Ron.
Everybody in the chat, please. I'm leaving Joe full screen, not to put him on the center stage, but take a look. Look at the previous live streams that we did with Joe, and look at this new one. I met with him last Sunday and did a camera exchange. It was a hand-to-hand in a parking lot, and we did it, and we got it done.
Very suspicious.
Thank you so much, boss, for being here while Ed's taking a little bit of a leave of absence, but he'll be back soon, and we love and appreciate you guys. Strength, prayers, and positive vibes go out to Nancy Guthrie and her family, Savannah, the entire family, and the surrounding community, and most importantly, let's give strength to those law enforcers and positive vibes to the FBI and everybody that's on the team that has to try to figure this out. We hope to get to a solution sooner than later. And if anything comes up and there's any new updates, you can bet your bottom dollar I'll be on it. And if Joe's available and Ed's available, we'll be on it. As retired NYPD detectives, we back the blue, and we want you guys to know the good outweigh the bad that's out there. Sheriff Nanos is not indicative of what good executives are doing across our great country. So I want that to be clear, and I want to get that out there. I want you guys to know we do not approve of what he's doing, but we have to tell you that the overwhelming majority are in it for the right reasons. Correct, boss?
Boots on the ground behind him the whole time.
Amen. Amen. All right. On behalf of both of us, we'll see you guys all soon. Peace and love, and leave us a comment down below in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon.